I'm live, according to the switchboard there. Let's make sure that I'm centered and balanced and all of that. Very good. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. And it should be starting on my phone here pretty soon, so I can check everything. As you are joining, by all means, please tell me where you're from, and let's make sure everyone can hear me properly before I begin. I'm just seeing a still picture at this point. There we go. Let's see which side's on which here. Yeah, move that light over a little bit. And got a decent picture this time. Surrounded by lights and my backdrop. So by all means, say hello. Tell me where you're from. And make sure everyone can hear me. Okay, picture and sound great. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I will be. Let's see. Sunny says hi, GP. Hi, Sunny. Hello, Remington. Hello, Eternal Inside. Eva is here from Poland. Hello, GP and everybody. Hi, Bulgaria. Eva, hello from Bulgaria. Elizabeth says hi, GP. Elizabeth is in Bakersfield, California. Right, Elizabeth, a new friend I just met a couple months ago. Sunny is in High Springs, Florida. Eternally Side is from Athens, Greece. Inner Smile Coach. Hi, GP. Hello, Inner Smile. Canada. That's Pat Lamarche. Hi from Canada. Sounds good. Hi, GP from Southern Nevada. Robert Goldberg. Emiliano from Sweden. Remington's jumping right into the questions. Very good. Excellent. Chris from Liverpool. Patang, nice to meet you again. Patang is in Israel, I believe. And as people are joining, I called this this particular episode, for lack of a better word, this particular satsang, all roads eventually lead to truth. There are some, though, that are more direct than others, and having explored some of those that are not so direct, I could speak with a certain amount of authority that the approach of Advaita, Vedanta, direct path, Zen, are in fact the most direct, simply because they don't see true awakening, the true realization, the self-realization of truth, as being the result of a process, which it really can't be. If something is the result of a process, it means it has a cause. If it has a cause, that means something existed before it. And if something has a cause, it will eventually have an end. It's kind of pretty much the way life works. Anything that has a beginning must have an end. So the real awakening must be an awakening to what has always been. And if it's an awakening to what has always been, then awakening isn't the result of a process. The truth itself is not a result of a process. Now, it has been my experience that some sleep more deeply than others. I mean, you can't deny the need of practice. We can't deny the need to prepare ourselves for the eventuality of that influx of insight and energy that we call enlightenment. Steve Jourdain put it really well. He said, I can show you the door to knock on, and I can show you how to knock. But there's no causal connection between you knocking and the door opening. However, if you are standing there knocking, you are in the very best place to see it open when it does. So Christ said, watch, I come as a thief in the night. Now, what he was referring to is the suddenness of realization. And we've all had the experience. Everybody listening to me has had the experience of having an aha moment, some kind of insight that just leaps at you, and there's this instantaneous recognition of it. There's that's true. Now, it didn't come as a result of a process. Excuse me. It didn't come as the result of some kind of laborious practice you did. Very, very spontaneous. Yet, it does need to be the possibility, an environment in which a piercing insight can take root and grow. And that's really what I concern myself with, creating that garden, as it were, where the seeds have the best chance of actually taking root and growing. Again, Christ used the example of the sower sowing good seed, and some of it went in rocky places and just didn't take any root. Other in places where they had a very thin topsoil, and it had started to grow but soon withered because it didn't have enough nutrition. And others got just kind of scattered and got eaten up by the birds. But some of those seeds actually fell into good, fertile, deep soil, and they took root and grew. Many of you may have even had what would be accurately called an enlightenment experience. The sense of oneness, the sense of being one with everything, the sense of suddenly having a level of clarity, being in a state of fearlessness. And you recognize it, of course, when it happens. There's nothing. You need no one to verify what you've experienced. That's the seed. And it can be a subtle insight, or it can be a piercing. I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold. A piercingly deep insight. But what we're really talking about here is the preparation of the heart and the mind, so that when that kind of revelation occurs, it takes deep root. It really does transform your whole life. Because pretty much everybody has had the experience, whether it be in personal development or spirituality, of having some kind of deep insight or deep experience. Maybe it was on retreat, maybe it was an audio you were listening to, maybe it was a book that you read. Something just went, oh my God, that's it. It's very common on retreats, because retreats are set up in such a way so that none of the normal triggers from our environment are present. And so, as a result, we're in a place where we can be extremely safe, a beautiful container, so that a lot of the defensive mechanisms can come down, and we can experience a deeper sense of ourselves. However, we've also all had that experience that when we went back to our regular lives, all the triggers were still there, and they started triggering. And we didn't really quite understand what was going on, why that was the case. Blame ourselves, you beat yourself up, I'm really not getting this, what's the matter with me, I need another retreat, blah, 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 blah. When in fact, the only thing that's happened is that the environment, the soil hadn't been prepared deeply enough, so that when that insight comes, it can begin to take root. And the first thing you can do to prepare that soil is meditation, which simply means allowing, the yoga of allowing, being able to be completely present with your feelings exactly the way they are. And the other part is understanding that the process by which insight permeates the entire nervous system can take time. It's rarely instantaneous. Rarely. For many, it takes lifetimes. Fortunately, it's not going to take that many for you. Not going to take lifetimes for you, because you're willing to sit and listen to teachers like myself and others. If you are, it means the Dharma, the truth, has already penetrated you and prepared the ground so that you're even interested in this kind of talk. I mean, we have what, 42 people here, right? How many billion people in the world? As far as I'm concerned, this is the most important conversation going on in the human kingdom. This kind of probing deeply into the nature of our own being. What could be more significant than this? This is way more significant than any scientific investigation, any kind of social thing. This kind of thing is the most important thing to be thinking about. For you, it is. Your Sunday afternoon at 4 in the east, 1 in the western United States, or it's 9 o'clock at night in London. It could be 4 in the morning somewhere for some of the people that are that are listening, but it's important, and I totally agree. This is the most important investigation in the entire human kingdom, and so please take heart. Right? It means it means the seed has found good, deep, rich soil and is growing in you. And it really is only a matter of time. I hear a lot of people, very dedicated, sincere, listen to me and other teachers, they take it in, they follow the pointings, they do the work, right? And can feel frustrated or become hard on themselves because of, why is it taking so long? Believe me, it's not. You are at the end of your path, not at the beginning. You would not even be paying attention to anything I'm saying if you were in the beginning of it. Now, why did I say that all paths eventually lead to truth? Because when the sense of a desire to know the truth first appears, there's no guarantee that standing nearby will be the Sadguru, the ultimate teacher, the last teacher, the one that's going to take you all the way. That emergence within us of the desire for truth first transforms us into a seeker. And the seeking can take a bit of a circuitous path, and it's okay. Sometimes the seeking is nothing more than wanting to improve your life. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the whole law of attraction thing and The Secret, the big hubbub about that, was a spiritual awakening, something inside. And as a matter of fact, I think I mentioned this before, a friend of mine did an extensive survey on the law of attraction. With like 10,000 responses. I mean, it was a statistically valid study, and much to her surprise and to mine, when she shared the results with me, the number one thing people were in looking to the law of attraction for, and The Secret and all of the teachers around it, the number one thing they were after was not money, it was not health, and it was not relationships. It was spirituality. It was the number one thing in most of the categories. And it just showed to me that what was really behind it was a deep spiritual awakening really going on in all of humanity. All paths will eventually lead there. Some of those paths will be abandoned for different paths. I've had several people that I've met over the last few months who have come out of fundamentalist Christian cults, which they now see them to be. Fundamentalism is cultish. It is a cult. very closed, very narrow, very, very aggressive. And but I've not seen that before. Usually those they're so tightly grounded. And I know lots of people. I've had some talks with people who are very fundamentalist about stuff. I get comments on YouTube actually every now and then by somebody who wants to tell me I'm either going to hell or in, or throw some scripture at me. But so to see this beginning to happen, now I didn't know these people before. They didn't even really find another teacher or anything. They just, something inside of them just said, there's something wrong with this. There's just something wrong. And then they find themselves wanting to investigate and know for themselves whether this is true. Meeting with the utter consternation of the elders of the group. Say, well, if I don't have the freedom to actually ask the questions, how can I truly know God? And I totally agree. So we're seeing this happen universally. And the reason I point this out is that all paths, not every path is going to lead you to truth, but every path you're walking on is an impulse from the truth to lead you there. And it will serve a purpose. It will show you something you need to see. Not always the most pleasant things we need to see. It'll show us things about ourselves. Yeah, and the result will be your awakening. And the main point I want to make about this is that your impulse to become a seeker didn't originate with you. It wasn't a choice you made. You didn't choose the truth. It chose you. You didn't choose this path. It chose you. Something inside simply recognized that this is the way we have to go. I have to go this way. And you do. And that willingness to go, to follow the impulse of your own insight, that's the only thing that's asked of you. The truth will do the rest. So that's all I want to say about that. I see questions are beginning to come in, which is what we're really here to do, not to hear me ramble on. But before I take the questions, I want to make sure that you see that every question you come up with, some may seem like some of the questions may seem like they're very pedestrian, or they're very domestic. How do I make more money? How do I get a girlfriend? How do I have better health? There might be a temptation to kind of say, well, that's not really a very spiritual question. Who really cares about all this stuff? But my perspective is simply this. I know that beneath that, while on the surface, even our most petty or gross desires are actually a very faint manifestation of the one desire we all really have, and that is to know ourselves as we actually are. Sometimes we simply haven't had enough spiritual education to recognize that. But the idea of reaching for something to fill the void within us, no matter, is real. We just need to learn to reach towards the right thing, the thing that's really going to satisfy it. There's, it's a spiritual smorgasbord out there, right? Or smorgasbord, I can't remember how to pronounce it, that everybody's, this is it, 3 steps to awakening, piece of cake, no problem, better life through whatever, meditation for realizing abundance, and on and on it goes. There's a million things that are going to grab your attention. Yes, you might get pulled into one, but your innate knowing of the truth, your innate capacity to recognize the truth when you see it, is in fact going to take care of you. So do not worry about it. Let's get back here. Let's see. If all roads lead to the truth, then why do some people die suffering? Remington Damper. I said eventually lead to the truth. Even suffering leads you to. What does suffering do? Suffering does nothing but move you to try to get out of suffering. If I don't know, that's really the path to truth. We are trying to find the ultimate, final unchanging, no going back end to suffering, are we not? The thing is that we, most of the time, if I'm suffering, there's a million people who'll tell me I need this pill, I need this drink, I need this relationship, I need this car, I mean, everything trying to tell you how to alleviate that. And sometimes there's a minor alleviation, so you can even last for a little bit, but then that gnawing discontent continues. Um, so yes, it can go on for multiple lifetimes. That's why you are also blessed to be willing and able and dedicated to showing up to listen to the truth when it's spoken, wherever it may happen to come from. You've probably already had enough suffering. You're done with that. I've tried a lot of those paths and they didn't work. And and you begin to see the similarity between all the paths. Nothing external will ever satisfy me. Simple as that. It will never give me the deep satisfaction. That is not to say, you should become a monk and renounce the world and all of that. All it means is that the ultimate search has to be within for the happiness, the contentment that never fades. It's not an emotional happiness. It's not the happiness that goes up and down. That's fine too. That's great. The joy of relationship, the joy of getting something new. I just got a new car about 3 months ago. It's very fun, right? It's very much. I'm really enjoying it. I'm taking care of it. I've named it, right? Um, um, but is that lasting satisfaction? Heavens, no. Everything we get will eventually decay and fall away. Even this body, right? This isn't the source of happiness. So everyone will eventually make it there. Everyone. That's all I can say. And one of the key elements, one of the key things that contributes to that happening is suffering. Suffering is not a problem, right? Suffering is what tells you things need to change. And it really is suffering that starts us all on the path. All right. Let's see. Chris. There we go. Let's see. Oh, Johanna's here. Ola from Jalisco, Mexico. Hello, Johanna. Mary Golf from Long Beach, California. I was just near there a bit ago, a couple of weeks ago. Rosario, thank you from Spain. Hi, Rosario. Mitra says, hello, dear GP. Mitra says, drug withdrawal is like spiritual awakening. Not quite sure what you mean by that. You want to clarify that a bit? I have some ideas, but and your smile coach says, great definition. Not sure who you're responding to there. Remington says, I nearly died like 3 or 4 times and didn't awaken. Once by drowning, once by pneumonia, once by alcohol, and once by blood clots. Why didn't I awaken? I awakened spontaneously a day before Thanksgiving. Because it's not the circumstances, like I said, it is no circumstance. The awakening has no cause, right? It's not the result of a process, right? It is very spontaneous. It can happen at any time. Matter of fact, it's happening to us all the time. The invitation is always there, right? It's the trouble is in the ear, not in the voice, right? So you have a near-death experience. We hear a lot about people who have near-death experiences, right? And then their lives are transformed. But there's for everyone where it's a big transformation, there's a dozen where it isn't. It's just a matter of the preparation. Yes, it's a big deal. It's a big insight. It can have an enormous impact. But like everything else, the impact can only go as deep as the heart, the mind, and the nervous system are prepared for it. Right? So, and then you say, I awakened spontaneously a day before Thanksgiving. Right? Christ said, I come as a thief in the night. You cannot predict it. It is not the result of anything, right? The idea, people say, well, I did, they hear stories about people awakening. I did this, this, and this, and right, and think, oh, well, that's it, and then they try to duplicate the process, and it doesn't work because it has nothing to do with the process. Everybody's story of how it unfolds is going to be different, but none of them are the absolute truth. None of them are the way. The only way is to simply be willing to be with yourself 100%, to drop all of your ideas, drop all of your notions about yourself, drop all memories, associations, the past, the present, and the future, and drop everything that you think that you are, and just be. That's knocking on the door. It isn't a withdrawing from life. You're still very much engaged in life. You're seeing all the things happening, but you're not as invested anymore. You're simply allowing things to be as they are. You're watching the reactive patterns and how this impulse to identify with conditioned responses as if it were myself is extremely powerful. But if you're willing to be the pure witness of that, neither resisting it nor going along with it, you are knocking on the door. You are standing in the only place where the awakening can take place. You are standing as that pure awareness that eventually will realize itself. Chris Gill asks, can you speak on unconscious actions, GP? It seems like consciousness seems to disappear when such powerful unconscious actions, events occur. It's a real mind twist in trying to figure them out. Thank you for that, Chris. That's a great question. Well, they're all great questions. I say that every time, don't I? I think I do. It's because it's always true. What we think of as unconsciousness is, I went unconscious. Well, you didn't really. The only thing that happened is the focus of your attention got absorbed. Now, focus of attention is not consciousness. Think of consciousness as the entire room you're in, right? It's a big room, right? But the lights are out, right? You can't really see anything. And you have a flashlight. And you're just kind of seeing one thing at a time. And if you didn't know any better, you would think that the only thing that existed was what was in that flashlight. The flashlight is your focus of attention. If you think that's all there is to consciousness, you're going to think that somehow you disappeared. But isn't, even when you're experiencing what you would call the unconsciousness or the flashlight focus, are you not conscious of that? I really want to lead your attention back to the consciousness that's always there. Not our sense of being conscious, not our sense of a focus of attention, not our even remembering that, oh, that's right, I'm the conscious being. Because even the remembering comes and goes. But remember, I don't remember, are both being perceived. They're both in consciousness, aren't they? It's just that we tend to identify more with one than the other. Mooji has a beautiful quote. He said, I am. Before the idea that I could forget or the idea that I needed to remember was believed. Did you get that? I am. Before the idea that I could forget or the idea that I needed to remember was believed. It's a powerful insight that when you realize that the sense of, oh, right, that's right, I'm the true self, and then, oh, I forgot that I'm true self, that both of those are appearing in front of the lens of perception behind which stands you. Consciousness has nothing to do with the content of it. Sometimes the content is, oh, the heavens are parting. Sometimes the content is, it's dark and cold in here. The consciousness remains the same. That's you. Completely and totally emptiness. Does that answer it for you, Chris? Yeah. Shift, take a step back and notice that even when suddenly you go, oh, I was unconscious for a minute, that in fact you weren't. You could tell me everything that was going on while you were unconscious, right? You could relay every single detail of it, right? Which means you were conscious. You had, and when you realize that that consciousness is really you, those periods of time of forgetting will get shorter and shorter and shorter. Right? Consciousness doesn't come and go. It can't. Somebody's saying, guys, we're forgetting to click like. Yes, please. And as always, my great marketing skills, if you would, please like and share. And of course, all the comments are really, really very, very helpful. Let's see. Peaches. Hello, GP from Peachy1. Hello, GP from Brooklyn, New York. Hi. Good to have you. Then I started my journey to find it again. Yes. Any journey to try to recover what was lost is futile. If it can be lost, it's not yours. Simple as that. If you can lose it, it's not yours. You cannot lose who you are, can you? You need not try to be who you are. We're not gaining anything. In fact, we are losing. We are losing everything that isn't us, and we want to lose everything that isn't us, and only have left, let only there remain standing that which is actually me. I do not want to lean on or to identify with anything that isn't me. Of course I don't. Why wouldn't I? So let your attention return back inward, becoming increasingly aware of the consciousness that is always here. That's you. And you can tell it's you because it's always here, and you don't come and go. Everything else comes and goes in front of the lens. It's always coming and going. Matter of fact, the coming and going of it is so fast, it just appears as if anything's there at all, for any duration of time. I heard one. I think it was, I can't remember what the name was. The guy won a Nobel Prize for determining how fast matter comes in and out of existence. It's like 100 trillion times a second. Things are coming in and out of existence. It's so fast, obviously, it's way faster than we can perceive. And so we have the illusion of something actually existing, when nothing does. And I don't mean that nothing's here and, I don't exist and all of that. What I mean is nothing fixed exists at any moment, ever. Everything you are experiencing is coming in and out of existence, except you. Right? Now, if you identify yourself with your body, your mind, your memories, your past, and all of that, then you will think that you come in and out of existence. And yet, if you really examine consciousness, consciousness. I don't look at it like it's an object. You can't. Examine yourself, the place from which you are seeing. You never, ever, ever have a sense of coming in and out of existence. Never for a second. So even the 100 trillion times a second that somehow was measured was perceived by something even more subtle. Otherwise, it couldn't have been perceived. Something unchanging and absolute is witnessing everything. But that unchanging absolute thing, for lack of a better word, is not a thing. It is not a form. It's not an object. It's not something that can be examined. But it is where you are looking from right now. It is what is hearing my words right now. It is what is seeing the image. As I've pointed out, my words are not being heard by this microphone that I'm speaking into. The words are not being heard by the internet that is carrying them to you. The words are not being heard by your headphones or by the speakers. They're completely unaware. The words are not being heard by the outer ear. They're not being heard by the eardrum. They're not being heard by the auditory nerves or any of that. They're not being heard by the brain. Look and find, see, none of that is capable of conscious awareness. So what's hearing? That which is hearing is consciousness. And isn't that you? This is so simple. Right? Really, really look. The only reason it gets complicated is because of our habitual pattern and our education to assume that you are your body, that you are not consciousness, that you are your body. And this phenomenon of consciousness is a weird aberration, an emergent property of the complexity of matter that will eventually be explained, even though nobody has. And there, you can break everything down, every little minute particle to its the most finite thing, tiniest, most minuscule particle, and you cannot find consciousness. You cannot find an atom of consciousness, the consciousness molecule, the consciousness structure. You can't find it. That's because it isn't there. Looking for consciousness in the body, I've said it before, it's like looking for Mona Lisa in the paint. It's like looking for Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in your MP3 player. It's not there. You'll never find it. But the mind wants to find it somewhere. It wants to turn it into an object, and that's our big mistake. You are not an object. You are not a form. You're not a sensation. You're not a thought. You're not a feeling. You're not anything at all like that. You are pure being. You just are. Not as anything. You just are. Boom! Inconceivable to the mind. You mean but if I am, I must be something, right? No, you're not. You just are. You exist without existing as anything. That in Buddhism is what's called emptiness, which is the nature of all things. Thank you for that. Yay! Chat came up and I'm here. I've been enjoying Satsang with Muji as well. Great. Hi, Ann. Good to see you. North Carolina, I think, right? David and Elaine. Hi, guys. Hi, GP. Thank you for your wisdom and clarity. Good to be here and to have found you. David and Elaine from the UK. Wonderful. Glad to have you guys here. Mitra says, yes, here is Iran. Ah, Mitra is in Iran. Wonderful. That's so wonderful. I remember that now. Joanne says, I'm fascinated by this idea that my spiritual practice does not have a causal relationship with spiritual awakening. In the moment, I can reach a deep sense of peace, but cannot sustain it. Keep on. Okay. If you have to sustain it, well, then it's not it, is it? Awakening peace is self-sustaining. It's your nature. You don't have to. If something you have to do to sustain it, then that can't be it. Because then it's something that comes and goes, and we just got to get ourselves in the right position so it stays. So we can be, really, really disciplined in our practice to make the peace stay. Nobody could do that. Christ couldn't do it. Buddha couldn't. Nobody can do that because it can't be done. And thank God it doesn't have to be, because peace is self-sustaining. So what's happening is the peace isn't coming and going. What's happening is that you experiencing the peace, but the seeds of the sense of identification with the body are still present. And so you feel the peace, and then the mind goes, I'm feeling peace. How do I sustain that? Who's that I? Is that not just a thought appearing that says peace comes and goes? You have to get peace. Or I have to get peace. Oh, I lost the peace. You are the peace. That thought is not trustworthy. It's not reliable. It's not consistent. That very same thing go, oh, I'm peace. I'm peace. And they, oop, I'm not peace anymore. So it's very, very subtle. I want you to switch your position. I want you to go to the one that is aware of the peace, of the coming and going, apparently, of peace, or the feeling of peace, of the thoughts that the mind is producing. Take a step even further back and see even the experience that we call peace, and the mind and its conversation about it and saying, I've lost it, are all appearing on the other side of that lens. You're here. You're seeing all of it, right? That's subtle, because spiritual practice, peace is like this objective we're after. And of course it is, peace and happiness and all of that. But we need to find it where it actually is. And where it actually is you. It is not anything that comes and goes. The experience of peace can come and go. Because sometimes life is very quiet and still. Sometimes it's totally chaotic. But you remain the same. If we think that somehow our spiritual practice makes all the chaos go away and we're going to have nothing but stillness, we have fallen into a deep trap. And we're going to spend our life trying to grasp and hold on to and keep a tight grip on this peace, and we're going to fail every single time. Anytime something comes along and disturbs it, we're going to think, I have lost my peace. Right? You're going to notice there's a disturbance. And all a disturbance is the nervous system reacting to the environment. Then the mind comes up and says, oh, I've lost my peace. Don't trust that thought. That's not you. That voice in your head is not your voice. The I it is referring to is an image in the mind. It is not you. The mind cannot refer to you. It cannot see you. You're not an object that can fit within the purview of mind. Because mind is nothing but objects and the manipulation of objects. That's all the mind does, is manipulate objects, and every object is simply a symbol. Good. So Zach, really ponder this, Johanna, because it will just completely and totally obliterate that sense of peace coming and going. You'll find that you are the peace that's looking at it. Peace is not an emotional state. It's the actual reality of existence. It is the Nanda, Ananda. It is total stillness. It is pure being, not being as anything, but just being. Everything in the universe arises out of it. So, very, very subtle. Thank you for bringing that question, because it's a subtlety of practice that most people miss. So now you can practice being peace, not acquiring peace. When you sit in meditation, or even if you're sitting on the subway in meditation, or however you do it, it's not important. Be peace. Speak as peace. This is peace meditating. This is the Buddha meditating. This is God meditating. And drop the idea that you are somebody trying to attain Buddhahood, trying to attain peace, trying to attain enlightenment, and simply be it. Because that is the absolute truth. Does that help, Johanna? Thank you. Dog Runner says, hello, brothers and sisters. Marine says, hello from France. Oh, GP, hi, Marine. Patang, for me, awakening means that no one has been awakened. I am awareness, which is aware of itself. Yes, that's very true. It's, excuse my sniffling. Um, I think it's a little better, making a big noise. Um, yes, but I want that, Patang, I want that to become for you experienced wisdom, right? Because it's a true thing. It's a right idea. But I've seen ideas like that get people have an intellectual grasp of a non-dual principle, like nobody awakens. There is nobody to awaken. Awareness awakens to itself, and it actually kind of can become kind of cold. It becomes much too intellectual for my taste. Now, I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I can sense much more heart in you, but I'm simply cautioning you to really take that in and see if that's your felt experience. It's not that it's not true. You've grasped it on one level. Take it down into the body and see, is this my felt experience? And when that has established itself as that I really feel as if there's nobody to, there's nothing but awareness. Is it your lived experience? Has it begun to permeate all the aspects of your life? That's what I look for. Then when you say those kinds of things, it will have an authority that someone who simply gets it intellectually won't. There'll be a power behind it. And, you've probably heard a lot of teachers who talk like that. Even, it's part of the Bodhisattva vow that you hear me talk about a lot. In fact, it was my main subject last week, it captures what you said beautifully. But it captures both sides of it. The Bodhisattva vow is simply, suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. And then it goes on, and having saved all beings from suffering, no being has been saved. Right? The beauty, the middle way of Buddhism recognizes the absolute thing you're saying, but at the same time is completely embracing in compassion the suffering of humanity. So it doesn't become cold and empty, it doesn't become intellectual. I'm saving all beings from suffering, and having saved them all, not one single being has been saved. To me, that captures the real spirit that is the Bodhisattva, which for Buddha was the highest attainment, the Mahayana. It was the step before Buddhahood, before the final step, which nobody can actually describe. Is that does that help? I'm loving that. The dog runner said that is faith. Dog runner trust. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. These things I do get a little bit behind, right? Ishta says, beautiful spring day to everybody from the southern United States of America. Ishta is in Louisiana, right? I think so. Remington, in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says there is only faith and ritual. What is ritual? Ritual in its purest sense is simply acting out in the invisible principle, right? There's nothing really wrong with it. We all have rituals. If you go to the same coffee shop every day and get a coffee, get your, for me it's like an almond milk latte. That's a ritual, right? Sitting down to dinner with family is a ritual, right? We have hundreds of rituals we do every day. We have hundreds of repetitive things, and there's nothing wrong with them, unless you get stuck in them, unless you think there's something about the ritual that is magic. That I have to do this ritual, and if I don't do this ritual, I'm going to suffer, and if I do this ritual, there'll be a great reward. That's ignorance. Ritual is simply another way of saying of an embodiment of spiritual principles. That's it. That's all it is. And one of the beautiful things about humanity reaching the level of consciousness that we that we have is that we have this freedom to basically consciously make rituals that before we just kind of inherited and did. We kind of can make anything that we want. We can, and so I say take the highest principles and embody them. Right? This isn't the practice of non-dual inquiry has to be offset by the deep practice of embodiment, of actually living it, walking the walk, walking the talk, so that your everyday life becomes a metaphor for the spiritual insight that has illumined your mind, illumined your heart, illumined your being. It's inevitable that that will take this kind of form, and 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 strike that thought. We human beings can't really live without ritual. Right? Otherwise, it's chaos. Every single moment has to be absolutely brand new, something new. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. We like things repetitive, stable, and all. It's really good. The only problem is that we get stuck in these things, and suddenly the ritual becomes more important than the invisible principle that it's supposed to represent. I mean, that's how religions become fundamentalist and oppressive, rather than because they mistake the costume in which truth is appearing for the truth. Truth can appear in as anything. Truth can appear in any form whatsoever, and as a matter of fact, wherever there's a little open door, it'll appear, and it will appear in the form most recognizable by the one it's appearing to. So whether it shows up as some certain kind of religion or New Age practice or personal development, or it doesn't matter, right? At the heart and soul of it is the truth, which is why I said all roads lead to the truth. When the egoic mind gets a hold of it, it turns it into something solid and fixed. No, this isn't the cosmic truth. This is the truth. I mean, that's the ultimate ignorance, but it eventually implodes. It eventually falls on its own sword, actually, and just kind of destroys it. Its own oppression becomes just eventually intolerable. It just always is upping the heat on suffering, and it will collapse. So faith and ritual. Faith is simply our conviction that what we're perceiving as the truth, which is beyond the senses, which is not verifiable by intellect, which is something we simply see and feel, it instills in us the faith that begins to live it, because it's so obviously true that you live it. So faith is seeing things as they actually are. It's seeing the truth as it actually is, right? Which completely outside the realm of our normal intellect and even our sensory experience. That lived becomes what in the Tao Te Ching he would refer to as ritual. I think he probably more accurately is simply embodiment. Does that help you, Remington? Good. Faith is not ritual. Oh, I see. One or the other. All right. Let's see. Should say it's not. Suffering is not separate from truth. Should say it's not separated from finding the truth. Wouter ousting. So preparing the ground is also being 100% emotional. But what does it mean to go deeper within a feeling like hate or sorrow. Cheers. Ah, very good, very good. Yeah, I'm often misunderstood on this, and that, like I'm supposed to, you're supposed to indulge, to go, to indulge emotions and all of that sort of stuff. I don't take that position. When I say go deeper into it, I mean find its source, right? Something like something like hate or sorrow. If we look at hatred, if you really are willing to look at your own hatred of something, you'll find an aversion. You'll find, I don't want this. I don't want this. So you've got an idea of what this is, right? And there's fear. There's a sense of powerlessness. There's a sense of vulnerability. Hatred is a virulent form of anger, and anger always comes when we feel threatened, right? Remember, all of our emotional reactions come out of very basic human experiences, and what we would refer to as the negative ones, which aren't really negative, are those that are a reaction to the sense of being threatened. Right? The nervous system wants to survive. Survival is number one. If it feels threatened, the natural impulse is fight or flee, right? Run away or prepare to defend yourself, right? If you look at nature, 99% of the time it chooses to run. It's the better chance for survival, right? But if you can't run, you've got no choice left but to fight. Anger is nothing but the feeling in the body that feels threatened and needs to defend itself but can't run. That's all it is. Fear is what it feels like in the body when we feel threatened and we're preparing to hightail it. And there's various physiological things that take place when that's the case. When this fear, this sense of being threatened, becomes perpetuated, it maybe even becomes institutionalized, right? I have this fear. I'm not enough. I'm not going to be enough. And then these guys took away my opportunities. They don't have any right to that. And we get bigotry and hate the Muslims, hate the Mexicans, hate everybody that isn't us, right? Which is a marvelous tool for those that love to embrace the despotic tendency in the human ego. But that's all it is. All I did was take hate and I explored it down to its depths. And if I explore it down to its depths, what I find is a sense of my own vulnerability and an attempt to not be vulnerable. Well, the truth is you are vulnerable. The human body is extremely vulnerable. And we survive by being together. We survive in various kinds of ways. We survive because of adaptability. But if I can really come to terms with my own sense of vulnerability, embrace it, and transcend it, there will be no ground on which hate could possibly grow. Sorrow is simply loss. The natural feeling somebody has when you lose something important to you. If it's an irrecoverable loss, that sorrow turns into grief. Nothing wrong with it. If you actually go all the way to the depth of them, and you don't try to avoid them, you don't try to push them away, but you really let all of those feelings be there, you will find the system will adapt to it very quickly, and that sorrow will pass. As does all things. But it'll pass not because it's been suppressed, not because you made it go away, not because you got rid of it in some way, but because it naturally ran its course. You gave it the space it needed to do what it needed to do. Now remember, from the point of view of non-dual inquiry, you are the consciousness that is aware of this. Now the consciousness that is aware of anger is never angry. That is aware of hatred is never hateful. Right? There's a sense of identification there. The more you are aware of yourself as that, the less there's no ground for any of these things to take root. And you get more and more fundamental in that which is simply the natural functioning of the energy system. And you'll find that when all of the stories gone, all the narrative, all the extra stuff, all the sense of identification is gone, that the nervous system functions harmoniously and silently and never interferes with anything. You find it's the most beautiful, natural functioning there is. And you never even have to think about it. You never have to deal with anything because it's functioning perfectly. The only thing that interferes with it functioning is the believing the stories of the mind that say this is what things are. And the mind, the egoic mind, is, remember, it's always attachment and aversion. It's always trying to avoid something it doesn't want, right? Whereas consciousness, the true awareness, is just total accepting at things as they are. Or it's an attachment to what it does want, which is the seeking and the gnawing and the grasping. Both of those are the primary, that's suffering in a nutshell. You transcend attachment and aversion, and you are done with suffering forever. You'll find that the root of every suffering is a refusal to accept this moment as it is. And all sorts of stories about how it should be, and even stories about how it is, right? All of that goes away, and just be present with what is here. And the best way to do that, we're not trying to find the right story as to what is here. The best way to do that is to simply be present with what you are feeling, because the feeling is the closest thing to what's really here. And it is the feeling that the story in your mind is reacting to that is triggering all of this, the anger, the aversion, the attachment. If you're just with the feeling, the sensation, the emotion itself, the reactions have nowhere to go. So it's there that you actually find the truth. The truth is not a story or an interpretation of what's happening. It's the direct experience of what's happening that needs no interpretation. Is that helpful? Thank you for that question. Feelings lead to destruction. No, that's not true, because they are not continuous. They are always changing. It's not true. They do not lead to destruction. Feelings lead nowhere. Feelings come and go. They can't lead anywhere. Our interpretation of feelings lead to not even destruction. They lead to illusion. They lead to ignorance. There's nothing inherent in feelings itself, right, that lead anywhere. We have to have a story about those. Every feeling you have simply comes and goes. Wooster said, I heard anger could... Wooster, ousting. I heard anger could be a gold mine. Yes. Well, I just showed you how it is. You have to get at the root of it. Anger is superficial. It is simply... Well, I already went into it. It is a reactive pattern on a certain level that has many levels underneath. If you go down to the level of it, you'll simply find the basic human fear of death, the fear of not surviving. And if you go all the way, you'll find that at the heart of that the fear of death arises with the sense of separation, the original trauma. The sense of I am this body, separate, alone, isolated, and therefore I'm in danger. And with that sense of separation arises the two fears, the fear of lack and the fear of death. That fear of death is the thing we try to compensate for the rest of our lives. And that compensation is what really creates all of the problems. We have to go directly back to the cause of that. The cause of that fear is that essential separation. And what satsang is a bringing one back to the actual experience itself. And what you are actually experiencing is consciousness aware of fear, doubt, all of it. And that consciousness is you, and you've never been separated from it at all. Dog runner, I am going to have to start ignoring you. You're just like kind of blowing this up. So I'd invite you to just kind of be quiet and listen for a little bit. I know you have a lot of ideas, but I would invite you to just kind of sit and listen for a bit, rather than being commenting on all the questions people are asking. Thank you. Um, Walter says, what Muji quote? Please repeat. Sure, I'd love to. The way Muji said it was, I am. Before the idea that I could forget, or the idea that I needed to remember, was believed. The I am need believe nothing. It just is. So everything is happening in front of the lens of perception. Even the idea that I could forget who I am, right? How can the I am forget itself? Or the idea that I needed to remember. Those are just ideas. I can forget myself. It's just an idea. Is it true? No, it's not. Can't be. Because if you could forget yourself, you couldn't even actually know that phrase, oh, I forgot who I am. I remember who I am. Right? Both of those are taking place in front of the same conscious awareness. Dog runner, really, I'm going to ask you now to stop. You're really trying to dominate this. If you'd like to have satsang, I recommend you start your own channel and you invite people to have the conversations. But please really stop, or I'm just going to remove you. So, this is not here. This is not a forum for you to be talking at people and making your comments known. So, I'm going to invite you, if you want to stay and listen, you're more than welcome to. But if you comment again, I'm going to remove you. Thank you. Yeah, that last content report. Hate speech report. Okay. So. Yeah. Give me a second here. Let's see. Let's see. Sanchez XX. Over a year ago, I experienced a super giant emotional release that led to an awakening. 2 weeks ago, after all was normal again. I'm only 20 years. I'm only 20 years old. Any advice? Well, first off, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. A supergiant emotionally. This is. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the emotional release, but the emotional release, for most people, what it means is that it's simply the fear goes, right? It's just like all of a sudden everything's okay. That is the pure state. Are you leaving us now, dog runner? I'm trying to remove you, but I can't figure out how to do it. If somebody could tell me how to actually remove him or her, I'm not even sure. Um, but you're no longer welcome here. Your comments are not helpful. So um, let's see if I click on it. Can I just block him? User hide user on this channel. How's that? Boom. All right, completely gone. Thank you. Thank you for the help with that. I have a lot of tolerance for people, but that was not. They were not actually. They were not actually contributing anything. Okay, where's that question? The emotional release. Oh, I lost it here. Sorry. Anyway, an emotional release. And there's certain practices like the Sedona method and the release technique. That's what they're about. Releasing what they would call negative emotions, and it's very, very powerful. I went to a couple of Sedona method retreats, and I really liked it. But what it really boils down to is emotional release. Is you finally let go. Right? You're not holding on to stuff. That's the grasping of attachment, right? Of trying to get something. You really let go. And it could be a little bit frightening because we're so used to grabbing onto things. We think, if I let go, I'm not going to feel good. And then suddenly, boom, and this wonderful emotional release takes place, which simply means in that moment of letting go, you experience the primordial feeling, the primordial freedom. You feel what it's like to be awake. And so, yeah, it is an awakening. It's not all there is to it. Like I said, there's a preparation that needs to take place. But for you at 20 years old to have an experience like that, for me is like really wonderful because you haven't accumulated a lot of junk yet. You haven't accumulated a lot of ideas and concepts and the conditioned patterns that most people have to deal with their life are not as solidified in you as of yet. I would advise you to find a real teacher. In the divided tradition and or the Zen tradition, but those are the ones that to me are the most authentic and the ones that are most honoring of the individual, not just ritual and that sort of thing. Don't take anything for granted. Don't just become somebody who believes whatever the teacher says. Be engaged, and a real teacher will be engaging you, right? So you're just at a great place in your life. And if for some reason over the next period of time you feel a crash, you feel an emotional tension coming up, it's okay, right? There is stuff in all of us that needs to come up. If you don't try to hold on to the high of the emotional release, because maintaining the high is not what it's about. I was mentioning that earlier. I think it was Johanna about peace. We're not trying to maintain anything. What we are doing instead is coming back to the place from which all of this is being seen, which means that anything can come up, and it has to, it needs to. Traumatic material, stuff from this life and from other lives. It's got to come up. The samskaras have to come up. The vasanas have to come up. Right? And if the sense of identification has become small enough, has become insignificant enough, then there's no danger of this stuff to come up because you're not going to get, oh, I got to get rid of this. I'm supposed to feel good. I'm not emotionally released anymore. It's not true, right? There was a much deeper environment that took place that allowed an emotional release to take place, and was the witness of that taking place. That pure witness is the real you. That's where I want to get you to. And from that place, all of the material that has caused so much problem and suffering in our lives has can be healed. It'll just come up and pass away because there'll be nothing wanting to hold on to it and nothing resisting it. There's no more argument with bad feelings. They can come because we know they're going to go. And there's no more attachment to the good feelings because we know they come and go as well. Nothing stays except you. That's the pure equanimity. That's the real peace that passes all understanding and doesn't ever wear out. Thank you for that. Beautiful. Just, it does my heart such good, when I see younger people, very early on having these incredibly rich real spiritual experiences. Not just kind of going into some particular religious philosophy, but actually having genuine connections with the divine. It's just really warms my heart. It gives me great hope that humanity actually is going to make it back from the cliff we're standing on. Ah. Red Rose for you says, guys, we were forgetting to click like. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. David and Elaine. Hi, GP. After awakening to our true natures, would you say a process of clearing up all the residue of conditioning associated with the belief in being a separate self is invariably necessary? Invariably, no. I never say this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. I mean, it's like there are no rules here, right? I taught a retreat last year called From Delusion to Awakening, the twofold path. And there's a pre-awakening sadhana or practice and a post-awakening sadhana. They're actually the same, the same practice. It's not invariable. There's some, when that awakening takes place, the preparation has already been done so thoroughly, it's just clip, 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 clip. Buddha was one of those. Ramana Maharshi was one of those. Steve Jourdain was one of those. I was not. Other people were not. Things take time. They kind of grind themselves along. It took a while for the incredible insights to actually move all the way through. I had a lot of junk that had accumulated over a long period of time. And so an enormous amount of patience and compassion. What's different is that the sense of identity is not so quick to identify. It's easy to see through the identification with what's coming up. At that point, it's okay. If something comes up, who cares, right? Right? And that process of it coming up and passing away, coming up and passing away, coming up and passing away, is the real purification of the entire system. That is what's clearing out the karma. It's clearing out it's stopping the wheel of samsara, the Shiva's wheel that just keeps grinding away. And beautifully, it also awakens in you the capacity to facilitate others' awakening. So, I don't like to, it is a process, but it's a self-activated process, right? It's not an imposed process, like most of the stuff we do in self-help and success teachings and things like that. They're externally imposed processes that we do. And in fact, we try to do that with meditation and awakening, which is the big mistake. Oh, you need to do this, 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 and this. And then it's going to lead to, ta-da, awakening. Not the case. Right? So you could put all of that aside. It's really self-defining. There's a deep voice of truth in every individual that is guiding us every single step of the way. If we don't hear it and make a misstep, guess what? It just changes course, tactics, and says something else. I mean, it never stops. God never goes, oh, God, I'm done. This is a lost cause. This doesn't happen. Right? So even after awakening has taken place, there's such a natural humility, a natural sense of gratitude, a natural sense that this of whatever comes next is just fine. And yeah, and some of the ugly stuff will come up, but the compassion now that you found will just be sweet, and it will extend beyond you to absolutely everyone you meet. No one will offend you. No one will perturb you. You won't react to things because there's nothing left to react. Even when your own nervous system goes haywire because there's a reactive pattern still there, you are no longer reacting because you're not identified with it. Right? So is that clear? The sense of identification no longer dominating is really what awakening is on a practical level, which means that whatever happens within us is no longer a problem, right? So all of a sudden you may find yourself getting angry, and you'll have a big laugh about it. Ah, there it is. You can just see it as a mindless, robotic, reactive pattern, not a moral failing that you have to overcome to be a really good, spiritual, saintly person, right? Ah, there it is again. Because you see that it's a robot. There's nobody there. Right? It is just a reactive pattern. So if it keeps reacting for a while, so what? It's no big deal anymore. You are imperturbable. Right? And that, of course, is the state we want to arrive at. Does that help you, guys? Dave and Elaine? Alain? Is that how you say it? Alain? Eleni? Mark says, how does one reconcile guilt when a loved one passes away? Well, it does depend somewhat on the specifics of the guilt. It's a very deep question because there are some feelings of guilt and remorse that can go for lifetimes. They can cause us to create vows that will actually live out for lifetimes, rather than coming to a real sense of forgiveness. The real sense of forgiveness is understanding that the cause of all our human misery, the cause of all the things that we've done in the past, the things that we're not proud of, was actually caused by our ignorance, was caused by the identification with the functioning of the nervous system and just the robot, as I call it, and thinking that was me. So that certain reactive patterns get put into place. It happens to everybody, right? Every one of us has certain reactive patterns that they're inevitable, right? It's just part of human life. It's not thought of. It's not determinant, right? So if you're really taught, if your nervous system learns that by being angry and nasty you get what you want, it's going to be angry and nasty. Now, is that an innate characteristic of you? No. It's simply the nervous system that has adapted its behavior to fit in an environment in such a way that it guarantees that it gets what it needs. And oftentimes, if it's not a loving environment, it becomes as nasty as the environment is in order to get what it needs. It can become aggressive. It can become even hateful. Now, all of these are actually mindless patterns of the adaptability of the nervous system simply trying to compensate and to get its needs met. Right? None of it's you. Now, later on, as a sense of identity develops, we think that these robotic tendencies, these robotic characteristics are ourselves. And if nothing intrudes to show us otherwise, we'll think that's who I am. I'm an angry person, right? Or, I'm an aggressive person, right? Or those thoughts won't even occur. You'll just be that, and you'll find, oh, if I keep getting angry, I intimidate people, I get what I want. And it just keeps going. There's a lot of people in business and politics, and that's what they do. They're nasty human beings, right? How do you forgive them? Because you see that they're robots. Their particular program has worked into adulthood, so there's been no reason to question it. Are they satisfied? No. Are they happy? No. But that is not a criteria that the nervous system uses to decide whether or not a behavior works or not. Remember, at a fundamental level, whether behavior is good or not depends on, does it help me survive? The primary, the prime directive, Star Trek fans, is survive. That survival mechanism doesn't care about happiness. It doesn't care about romance. It doesn't care about success. It doesn't care about personal aggrandizement unless they contribute to that survival. And so it gets very, very narrowed. And so a very aggressive personality that was successful in getting its needs met may become the bully at school, or just may become manipulative. I mean, there's all sorts of permutations it can take. The most important thing to realize about it is it's not you. It never was. And it's not them either. When you see that it is simply ignorance, that it is that robotic tendency that just got programmed in that particular direction that has not been seen clearly, you can say just like Christ did, Father, find them innocent. They don't know what they're doing. And then we can say that about ourselves. When you make that realization in yourself, and that realization is deep enough that it becomes not just a guilt, but genuine remorse. And genuine remorse is simply, I did it, and there's no undoing it. I hurt someone, and there's no way to hurt them. I said that, and there's no way to unsay that. It's one of the most. It's when your heart opens, it is one of the most painful things we can experience. And I always invite people to not shy away from it. Because that kind of remorse is the beginning of wisdom. A genuine, heart-based wisdom is a wisdom that recognizes, that actually feels the pain that it has caused someone else. Boy, imagine what the world would be like if everyone could do that. Imagine our politicians and our world leaders that are so quick to send people to war to conquer some country. If they could feel themselves the pain they're causing others. Oh my God, what a gift. That is compassion. And that's the only place forgiveness can actually come from. When you are willing to be with that level of remorse, wisdom happens and forgiveness arises. Genuine forgiveness, which, by the way, doesn't mean pardon. It means to be found not guilty. You find the real culprit behind all of this, the real mischief maker, the real devil. It wasn't you. It was ignorance. It was a complete misunderstanding of who you really are, a living out of that false version of yourself, and you see directly the repercussions of having done that. Oh, God, what an eye-opener. I wish everyone could feel that level of pain and suffering. That would open the floodgates of awakening, an awakening of the heart, an awakening that wasn't just seeing, it was being. It would make it impossible for you to hurt someone else. It would make you willing to do what Christ did, to even be tortured and killed rather than respond in kind. Oh, if all the people who claim to be Christians would actually be Christians. Oh, I've got to protect myself. From who? Is that what Christ said? Protect yourself from your enemies? I said, love them. when he said, don't put up an argument. He didn't put up a fight. He didn't defend himself. Oh my God. My God. If only we could do that. If only we would genuinely be Christians. Turn the other cheek. Right? Be complete forbearance. How many times should we forgive our neighbor? Find them not guilty. 7 times? Christ said 70 times 7. Never stop. Never, ever, ever stop. So obviously this is an important one for me because rarely do we get to the heart of the matter. But when you have a question about remorse, how now do you deal with something when I can't even go get forgiveness from the person I did it to? Wow. Now it has to come from you. And it's not just about making amends. It's about the real way to make amends is to root out of yourself the possibility of that ever happening again and gleaning from it the depth of wisdom that is not only incapable of harming another, but is willing to endure the torment of others rather than respond with hatred and anger. That's what Christ represented. That is the heart and soul of the love of Christ that we still honor him for all these days later. And that's the message that has been totally perverted by modern Christianity, TV preachers and the like, which Chris Hedges rightfully calls Christian heretics, which I could not agree more. I hope you're all enjoying Satsang today. As always, this is my favorite thing to do. Does that help, Mark? That's where you I know I really went off on probably way deeper than you wanted me to, but yeah, reconciling with the sense of guilt, truthfully, will in fact remove the guilt. Yeah. You will discover what I call your original innocence. It will, and that original innocence isn't, oh, I never really did that, I don't have to. It isn't like that. It is a real honoring. It's a real wide awake, sober seeing of why why this path of awakening is the only path to take. There's no compromise. There's no discount. This isn't Walmart. This isn't the Home Depot, right? No, Spirit Depot. It's not that. It's the real thing. But this is the wisdom. This is the prajna paramita, the wisdom that will take you to the other side. The wisdom that is eternal. Not being there enough while they were alive. I didn't see that one before. Sorry. That the specific thing. Yeah. Well. Yes. How many other people in your life you're not there for enough now? How about yourself? Right? The most honoring thing you can do for yourself and for everyone else is to wake up. The greatest gift you can give humanity and everyone, whether you've been able to give to them or not, is to wake up, to come to know who you are. It won't, because that will remove all sin all pain, all suffering, all perturbability. It will remove the past. It will remove the future. It will remove all of the characteristics that could possibly cause any harm, and will make you a conduit through which others can find the same path. What greater gift would that be? What greater recompense? What greater repentance than to discover your true, divine, godlike nature and to share it openly? Patang says, yes, I am the empty spaciousness that contained all that I am aware of. I was responding to the fact that I wanted to make sure it was in your head. Good, good. So just keep nurturing it the way you would a plant. You know, awakening is not this and it's over. It is a perpetual unfolding. Imagine a flower that just never stopped opening. I mean, we can't, of course. It's just, but just imagine. Right? The awakening is not static, but it's unmoving. I know. Sorry, it's unchanging, and yet it never stops changing. It's absolutely perfect, but it never stops unfolding into greater and greater perfection. It is inconceivable. It's a good thing you don't have to conceive it, because it's what you are. You don't need to know what it is in order to be it, because you are it. So thank you for that. Tatfu Tan says, Satchit Ananda Swarupa. Amen. David Smith, GP, I understand all of it, but is there a way to make life more beautiful and or meaningful? Even if we're not the body and the one suffering, why should I watch the suffering? Well, the very fact that you say, why should I watch the suffering, is an aversion. The moment you're willing to watch it, it ceases to be suffering. You know, I'm not watching suffering. I'm not on the lookout for suffering, right? God, you don't have to be. It's everywhere, right? But what I am always on the lookout for is that little doorway that allows me to alleviate it. There's plenty of, yes, make life more beautiful. Be more beautiful. Have more beautiful things around you. Surround yourself with beautiful spirits and beautiful hearts. But you're never going to be able to walk through life without encountering suffering. Right? And when you have transcended that suffering in yourself, you'll find suffering beings coming to you because they want relief from suffering as well. But you're not going to see them as suffering beings. You're going to see them. You're going to see the divinity within them. And you're going to see the robotic tendencies that are the suffering. For you, they'll be just clear as a bell. And holding that space, that suffering-free space, will, of course, communicate it to them. It will bring about a lessening of suffering for them. So that this isn't we're just going to head down to the dregs now and do all, and it's not that at all. You know, surround yourself with beauty. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm right. My son and I are remodeling his house. We've just completely, almost gutted the downstairs, and the whole thing. Why? Beauty. Surround yourself with beauty, subtlety, nuance. Right? For me, it's quite minimalist. I like things very Zen-like, right? Or like the Tao, which is all the same aesthetic as Zen. I love surrounded with beauty. I listen to beauty. I don't listen to the radio. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to most music. There's just a little bit, all of which that are enhancing for me. All of those that are expressive of me, right? Of my state, of what matters to me. This gives meaning to everything, right? I love your question about giving meaning to life. Right? People are looking for the meaning of life. And what I say is you give life meaning. When you know who you are, everything gets bathed in that love. Everything becomes meaningful. Not because it's inherited some meaning from the outside, but you're seeing the meaning of it from within. What's the meaning? Well, it's the very presence of God. It's the presence of the truth self right here in front of me. As the Sufi poet said, it wasn't Rumi, but another Sufi poet said, everywhere the eye lands, it sees the face of God. That's what gives it its beauty. When we have a story about what I'm seeing, I look at this person and I see their age and their weight and their things like that. And all of that's going on in my own perception. But if all of that's gone, I see them exactly as they are. No connotation, no cultural overhead, no administrative stuff. I see them just as they are. And I see God. Look at that. Oh my. Because every form is God. Every form is truth. God doesn't prefer this costume over that, right? Everyone is. Absolutely everyone. There's nobody here but the one. And so suddenly, everything you're looking at, I mean everything, this is the one. These glasses going on my nose. The nose is the one. The napkin I've been wiping my mouth is him, her. What more meaning could anything have, right? Does that help? Does that help, David? Yeah. So let your understanding of it sink deeply into the heart, and it will have a completely different flavor about it. It will take on, it's actually kind of a feminine flavor. The Vedanta is very precise. It's very male, very pointed, very. It's like there's no wiggle room, right? We're doing very, very. So we're not taking no for an answer. We're clearly discerning what is real and what isn't. But then the Vedanta has to sink into the Tantra, the living of it, the embodiment of it in everyday life, in every relationship, in every touch, in every sound, which is it becomes a very feminine flavor to it. Everything becomes enriched and motherly. Everything becomes embraced, right? Whereas the precision of Vedanta is, and nothing is me, right? Until I'm completely freed of all of the things I've been identified with, and what's left is, this is me. But then this me begins to invite everything back into its space. That precision of this is not me now becomes everything is me. You can't force that to happen, right? But just let it sink into the heart. You ask for more beauty and meaning. This is a request. I want more beauty and meaning. Okay, good. And I'm saying is that the nature of the self is redolent with it. So your prayer is to be answered. So just simply open up to that answer. Happy face. Hi, GP. Intense, angry, and resentful thoughts took hold, and the heart was racing. Head felt like it would explode all night long. I must be the one who knows this, of course, but I identified. Is there more to this happy face? I'm going to scroll down here and see. Yes. I identified with it. Was trying to be the presence. Seems funny now. Good. Good. Let's see if there's more. Before I run off on it. No, I think it's it. Okay, cool. Yes. Sometimes these things can come up like a tsunami. And Just heard Muji say the other days, don't take the anti-tsunami pill too quickly. Right? When these intense emotions come, they can be anger, they can be rage, all sorts of stuff's coming up. And you're like, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, right? And is coming up. It can really take us back. It's supposed to come up, right? It's the perfect setting in which it can come up, right? And if you just are with it, you let it be there. Oh my God, I know. It's the last thing you want. Oh, away. But that's where the spiritual muscle is really being worked. This is where you are becoming a mature spiritual being. If you can just stand your ground, right? I am not suppressing it. I'm not expressing it. I'm going to stand right in between. Everything inside of me wants to react. I'm not. I'm just going to stand. I'm going to be that rock solid awareness. You will watch as the tsunami turns into a nice warm breeze. And yes, next day, it seemed kind of funny. What the heck was that? But standing your ground like that, yes, it seems funny. But remember, in the past, these things would have come up and they would have grabbed you. They would have gotten your identification. You would have become there. You would try to push it. It would have forced you to identify, I'm the spiritual person. It's going to go away now. It's going to go away now. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. It's going away yet? Going away yet? Right? Or you go off on it. Yeah, you son of a bitch. Why did you do this, man? Right? Whatever it was, right? But now, you're not identified with it. So it's coming in full force. You are feeling it in its total. Because, when we either try to push things away or try to react to them or try to do something with them, what we're trying to do is lessen them. We're trying to compensate for them. But when you don't do that, you feel them in their full force. But that's where the power is. Because if it hits you with its full force and you don't move, it may come again. It may not. It may come again, but you know what? It won't have the same force. That tsunami is going to be more of a big wave, right? And the next time, it's going to be a little wave. And the next time, it's going to be a ripple. And the next time, it's going to be still and clear. Because you are immovable. How do I make... Gee, can you make it easier? I'm not going to make it easier. Why in the world would I make it easier? It's like you're working out at the gym and you're telling me, yeah, can we put lighter weights so I can get weaker? I don't want you weaker. The point of this is not for the circumstances to get so harmonious that you're not troubled. The point of this is for you to become so strong you're not troubled no matter what the circumstances are. That's the point. That's how you overcome the world. That's how you truly, because that's the real awakening. You are being what you actually are. When you're standing in that place of non-reactivity, even though everything inside of you is trying to react, you are standing as perfect, pristine awareness. You are, in that moment, truly being yourself. You are the self, because that's what the self does. It doesn't react. It witnesses reaction. It witnesses everything. It sees the tsunami. It sees the impulse to identify. It sees all of it. But it's pure, spacious awareness. It's just there. It just is. And that's you. And so, in a moment like that, when you take that position and you don't yield it, oh my God, that's so powerful. Oh, brilliantly powerful. Thank you. Oh my. Oh boy. I have got oh dear, I am not going to get through all of these. How much time I got? No, it's 1:08. Sorry. Just right up the microphone and sniffle. I got about 15 minutes here, huh? Let's see. Ebony. Hi, Ebony. Thank you, by the way, for your donation. That was very kind. I am, by the way, everybody who has, excuse me, everybody who has made a donation, either through PayPal or through Patreon. I am planning I think week after next. Oh, I don't know what the schedule is. I have to talk with my helper. To do a private satsang just for everyone who has donated. And the private satsangs are really nice because in this forum all I can do is answer chats, but in the private satsangs, in the what happened? I just lost all my thing here. Where's all my comments? In the private satsang, it's more of a meeting where you can come on camera and we can talk, or you can just voice. So we can have a different kind of dialogue, and I can actually give you much more individualized attention, and that's coming up. So anyway, before I get to your question here, I just wanted to thank you, Ebony, for your generous donation. It was very, very kind. Now I'm having a hard time getting the questions back. I don't know what happened. All right, well, let's do this. Give me one quick second while I reset things here on my phone so I have my questions available to me. No sign that anything's going to go wrong at this point. Yay. Wonderful. Okay, there we are. Now we're back. Let's see. Oh wow. Oh, because it left behind. Did it just cut some stuff off from before? Oh dear. Where's the rest of the chat? Okay. I seem to have lost. Ebony, if you could ask your question again, please. I'm really sorry, but part of the chat just kind of disappeared, and I can't get it back. I wonder if I do this, if it'll give me the chat back. No. Nope, it doesn't. So, Ebony, I was going off on just thanking you for your support, and I lost your question. But in fact, I lost a bunch of questions here. Let's see, Chris. Block of things. Oh, maybe I didn't. No, GP from. Oh, here's greetings and love, GP from Nairobi, Kenya. Hello, Kennedy. Nice to have you, Kennedy Macharia. Curious Snify. Thanks, GP. Happy face. Little heart. I guess I got your answer right. Let's see. Chocobo Ninja. I was drawn to. Oops. Chocobo Ninja. Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah's here. Let's see. Let me know, Ebony, when you repost your question. I'm so sorry. But my phone kind of locked up, and I had to restart it, and so I mean they're still here. They'll show up when it gets posted. But I guess when you join a chat midway, you can't see what was there before. That's weird. So if I've skipped your question, please forgive me. I'm doing my best here. Let's see. Okay, Chocobo Ninja. I was wondering if you feel that source energy can lead us to messages through our physical reality. I recently had an experience where I found a rock that connected to a dream it had, and also had my current age in Roman numeric, and I felt it was meant for me. I was drawn to it through a feeling in my heart and felt it was meaningful. I don't want to share too much because I feel the meaning is there, but too personal. Source energy, yes. That's all source energy, that's a great name. You can call it all that is. You can call it the self. You can call it Buddha nature. You can call it God. Call it the I am. It is all the same thing. It's you, though. The most important thing is you're seeing source energy as if it's something out there leading you, right? It's really your own inner voice leading you. And yes, it's constantly communicating, whether that be a rock with a Roman numeral on it or me sitting here on YouTube talking to you. It's coming from the same place. Everything in your life is truth calling you home. Everything, every single event, even the ones that don't seem so auspicious. Like finding a rock that has a certain resonance that feels really appropriate to you. It has a Roman numeral on it that is your age. It's like, this has a meaning for me. But you know what? So does the grumpy person at the grocery store who happens to be there when you're in line. So does the fact that something runs out that you really need. The fact when somebody cuts you off on the highway. All of those are also messages. Really. We have to see everything. Either everything is a message from the ultimate reality within us, or none of it is. For me, it's all or nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, it's all. Everything has meaning in it. Everything is the meaning specific to you. Not just meaning for everybody that we're all supposed to describe. No, you. Very much for you. It's very intimate. It's very personal, right? Not in a personal sense, like I'm this separate self trying to get back to God, but just the individual, unique ones. Just like a unique piece of art, right? And so everything going on in your life is directed at leading, excuse me, leading you back to you, leading you home to yourself. This is more than I've talked in quite a while. There we go. Something in there just popped a little bit. Everything in life is leading you back to you. There's no such thing as a random, arbitrary, or meaningless event. We don't always see the meaning in it. Because oftentimes we're looking for the meaning, we're looking for what we think the meaning is. I'll tell you what the meaning of it is. It has some role to play in you awakening to yourself so that you no longer see yourself as this individual and then source energy over here sending messages to you. You see yourself as the source energy reconnecting to who you really are. And that's satsang. That communion, not just sitting here listening to me or another teacher, that communion, realizing that the reality of you is reaching out to the false sense of you, the self-image you have of it being a separate self, and saying, no, that's not who you are. And you have to use the word you until eventually you get closer and closer. It's me. I am you. You are me. We are one. And then even the sense of there being a separate you at all just dissolves, and there's just the I, the one I am. Prior even to the sense of there being an I am, prior to the word I or am. Because obviously, even the word I can't emerge unless you're there first. The ultimate is simply there. It simply is. Everything else, the I am, and the entire universe and all of the universes put together, all emerge from that indescribable, ineffable, unknowable essence that is simply, we call it the I am, but it is even prior to that. It's the absolute. It's the great unknowable. It's simply you. It is that which is hearing my words right now. That's how intimate it is. Chokondijo says, thank you for your spiritual guidance. You're more than welcome. Chocobo from Final Fantasy. Yes, got some gamers here. Got some gamers on the line. GP, I'm afraid of losses that will inevitably come, like losing your parents someday. I have 2 children. I play with them and spend time with them a lot, like it's the last day. I'm too sensitive. I don't think so, Robert. I feel it too. I spend a lot of time with my granddaughter. I'm actually staying with my son, doing the house and stuff together. I get down and visit my other son as often as I can. Yes, I'm spiritual. Yes, I'm awake. I know what the truth is, right? I'm not Muji. I'm not a walking Buddha. I'm still working through many things, right? But there's still, it's the warmth of the heart. Buddha, Muji is a full-on, fully awake Buddha, and I watched him, walking into all the people who had volunteered to translate when we were in India, and he walked into the room where all the translators were, and the tears were just flowing down his eyes. He was just so grateful and so touched. When you see him with people, the love is so real. It is just so palpable. It's personal and it's impersonal at the same time. It's not like somebody's more special to him than somebody else. But it's very emotional, it's very real, it's very deep, it's very heartfelt, it's very human, right? So we're going to feel that loss, and of course, some people try to overcome, they think that overcoming means that I'm not going to feel anything in the loss. No, you're going to completely accept the loss. I think I told the story here before of the Zen master who was having dinner with several of his students in a restaurant. And they're all sitting around there doing the thing, having their dinner, and like, this is a Zen master, right? Transcends, all of that stuff. Well, his cell phone rings, and he picks up the phone, and you see him, his face suddenly gets really dark, and he bursts into tears. He's just beside himself. He's weeping uncontrollably, so much so that everybody in the restaurant knows it. They're all getting kind of, what's going on here? People are kind of, his own students are going, what's going on? What's caused such a breakdown? This went on for 10 minutes, right? And then stopped. It was over. He was back. The phone call was he had just gotten the message that his mother had died. Now, one would think, the Zen master is just transcendent. No, the Zen master is fully human. And so he didn't block anything. He didn't try to obscure it. He didn't try to reframe it. He didn't try to, spiritualize it away. He completely fell into his grief, which lasted 10 minutes. He completely embraced everything his body was feeling. This complete major transformation that had just taken place in his life. And the body had to dispel the energy. It had to go through the grief, right? So, I think about it. I'm getting older. I think about what's it going to be like? How much of me is my granddaughter actually going to know? What's it going to be like for my children? I mean, fortunately, they're in their 40s. It's not like it's going to be a huge tragedy, but letting go of them. Death isn't just us letting go of you; it's you letting go of them, right? You don't remember all your families from your past lives and weeping over them. All of it's going to fade, right? But to me, what that means is not to try to transcend it, but to realize that this moment's precious. It'll completely reshuffle your value system. I mean, if the aggressive CEO who's busy making tons of money, and and their children are with nannies. If they realized this, if they realized, their entire value system would be transformed. They simply wouldn't do what they do. Being with their children would be way more important than that next deal, or their getting their stock price up a point. It's simply how we make life truly valuable, and how we make it valuable is to recognize its impermanence, right? I mean, the children you were sitting playing with yesterday are not the same children today. You have gone to a different place. They've gone to a different place. They're not the same. In our minds, we think, oh, they're still the same, because we can't perceive that change, which is happening slowly to the mind, but in fact, it's happening on a level so fast it's really mind-boggling. My I I miss. I remember vividly my own children as 5, as 8, 10, 15, as teenagers, and that sort of thing, and I miss them terribly, right? But you could even say that they're dead, right? The 5-year-old's dead. It's gone. Never going to be seen from again. And now I'm living with my 44-year-old. That 5-year-old is now a 44-year-old, and we sit around, have a beer together, and knock down walls and replace toilets and stuff like that. This moment is precious, folks. This moment is the only one you've got. This moment is everything. And if that moment seems difficult, embrace it, right? Say, thank you, I'm alive. Thank you, I am feeling this. Thank you, I am experiencing everything as it actually is. And if the moment is blissful, just soak it up. Embrace it, because it won't last. Its transience is what gives it its meaning. Its temporariness, temporary, is that a word? Its temporalness is what gives it its import. Embrace life as it is. Our tendency is we want to hold on to these moments. We want to keep the 5-year-old 5 years old. And it's impossible. To embrace impermanence is to embrace life. Yes, to the mind, I'm going to give all these things up. Yeah, you're going to give up what isn't real. You're going to give up the idea that life is static. You're going to give up the insane attempt to keep things the same. You're going to give up the insanity of trying to make the impermanent permanent. And instead, you're just going to flow in the river of life that is nothing but beauty and benevolence and power and love and significance and fun, and doesn't actually end. And even then, you will find that death has no effect on it whatsoever, and that everything is still here, everything is still accessible, but it is not personally accessible. Well, I think on that note, I'm going to have to call it a day. I've just got dozens and dozens of questions that I haven't answered. So I will be doing a private satsang. Oh, Robert says, "Thank you. I love your words." Thank you for that, Robert. Thank you for your heart. I'm going to be doing a private satsang for all graduates, all my graduates, which means anybody who has ever bought anything from me, be it a $7 meditation, a $20 meditation, or a huge class, is invited to a private satsang. A private satsang is private, just an open call where we can talk about anything you like. And that's going to be it's about a week away, I think a week and a bit. There'll be a schedule. If you're on my mailing list, and you can get on the mailing list just by going to gpwalsh.com, I'll be telling everybody about it. I'll be sending out notices about it. I'll also be doing a private call for my inner reconciliation certified facilitators, the people I've trained to coach and work with. And then I'm going to be doing one for all the Patreon and PayPal donors I have, the people who have been so kind as to give me support. So if you'd like to do that, I mean, you can buy a class, or you'd like to become a donor, just go to GP Walsh/donate. That will take you to PayPal, and at PayPal you can do either a recurring donation or a one-time. You can also go to gpwalsh.com/Patreon, Patreon, which is a site dedicated to nothing but recurring, so that you could like $1 a month or something. It really does help. I keep everything to a very bare minimum. I try to keep my courses affordable. I do these things. I refuse to put commercials on any of my videos, and I've got hundreds of them. So this was freely given to me. I give it as freely as I possibly can, and still keep the lights on. So thank you all for being here. I'm just look at the end here where people like to say goodbye. Thanks, GP. From is Yale, love you and your satsangs. Thank you, Georgie. We are so blessed. I hope you come back to Long Beach soon. Blessed. Thank you, Mary. Wow, thanks. Love your words from Robert. Great questions and answers all along your satsangs. Thanks for the gift. Oh boy, I wish I could answer all the questions. But as I've said before, if even though I didn't address yours specifically, I've just found that the way truth works is that your question was answered. Just take it into your heart, because the real guru, the real teacher, the real satsang is there. The words that I speak that are touching you from the inside, not from the out, right? So it's actually always, the answers are always coming from within you. So thank you all for being here. I love you all so much. It is, you can't believe what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to do this, to be able to share this with you, and to have people who really, really care about what to me is the most important inquiry a human being can possibly ask, and to be capable of getting to a level of spiritual development where you can and want to is just stunning and rare. So I thank you all for